This is not a hate fest. It is a love fest. It's a love fest. So turn around, go to the person next to you, and high five them, because you are the special forces. You are the elites of the American gun rights movement, which without the gun rights movement, there would be no rights. Okay, now there's a certain reporter made comments, Rachel Maddow, and all I have to say to her, it's a good thing that this is a love fest. Otherwise, we tar and feather you.
There were two would-be armed pro-gun rallies in and near Washington, coinciding yesterday with the 15th anniversary of the bombing of the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building in Oklahoma City. That shout-out you just heard to the Rachel Maddow show there came during the rally that was in Washington, D.C. That's the one where people weren't actually armed, because if they were armed, that would have been against the law in D.C. But demonstrators in Virginia were very much armed. They gathered initially on national park land, where, thanks to a law signed by President Obama earlier this year expanding gun rights in national parks, it was perfectly legal for them to carry their weapons. Must have been sort of bamboozling and frustrating to the people who were there to complain about their gun rights being impinged by President Obama that they were only able to be there in that way because he expanded their gun rights. That said, as you can see, there weren't actually all that many people at either of these pro-gun rallies. Several estimates put dozens at the armed rally in Virginia and hundreds at the unarmed rally in Washington, D.C. Those low numbers, though, didn't stop an actual member of Congress from turning out to address this teeny tiny group of people with empty gun holsters at the Washington rally.
Fellow patriots, we have a lot of domestic enemies of the Constitution, and they're right down the mall in the Congress of the United States. And right down Independence Avenue in the White House of the United that belongs to us. It's not about my ability to hunt, which I love to do. It's not about the ability for me to protect my family and my property against criminals, which we have the right to do. But it's all about us protecting ourselves from a tyrannical government of the United States.
That's what we're going to use our guns for. That wasn't just some random guy at the rally. That was a congressman, Congressman Paul Brown of Georgia. His remarks on the occasion of the 15th anniversary of the bombing in Oklahoma City that killed 168 people, that was carried out by an anti-government extremist. Leading up to that grim anniversary, President Clinton delivered a speech in Washington, reflecting on the response to the Oklahoma City bombing at the time and what we can do as a nation to prevent such a thing from happening again. To that end, the former president remarked on the difference between criticizing the government and inciting violence against the government and people who work for it.
We can't let the debate veer so far into hatred that we lose focus of our common humanity. It's really important. We can't ever fudge the fact that there is a basic line dividing criticism from violence or its advocacy. What we learned from Oklahoma City is not that we should gag each other or that we should reduce our passion for the positions we hold, but that the words we use really do matter, because there's this vast echo chamber, and they go across space and they fall on the serious and the delirious alike. They fall on the connected and the unhinged alike.
Those remarks, and President Clinton echoing them in a written op-ed in the New York Times, have proved to be upsetting for some commentators on the political right.
So I guess you can't be critical. You can't say socialism exists. You can't be critical of government. I thought this was the highest form of patriotism when the criticism was aimed at George W. Bush. Something's happened. I must have missed it. What happened here?
Well, apparently it's hate speech when it's on the right, and it's not hate speech when it's on the left. So, you know, go figure where that comes from.
Rupert Murdoch's New York Post editorial board took this line one step further, not just criticizing President Clinton for cautioning against inciting language, but actually blaming the Clinton administration for the Oklahoma City bombing, saying, quote, McVeigh never cited talk show hosts as inspiration. Rather, he pointed a finger at Clinton's own administration. Oklahoma City was a retaliatory strike, McVeigh wrote in a letter to the media, a counterattack for the cumulative raids and subsequent violence and damage that federal agents had participated in over the preceding years, including but not limited to Waco. So the New York Post explaining how, really, if you think about it, the Oklahoma City bombing was the federal government's fault. They weren't the only voice on the right to go there and to also lash out at President Clinton.
Let me ask President Clinton, what words caused Timothy McVeigh to act? Name one. I want to know what words and who spoke them. All I've ever heard is that Timothy McVeigh was outraged over the government invasion led by Janet Reno of the Branch Davidian compound in Waco, Texas. And the Murrah building was blown up on that exact date 2 years later. McVeigh was not inspired by anybody's words. He was inspired by Mr. Clinton's deeds.
But if you want both violence-inciting language and a sympathetic explanation of Timothy McVeigh's motivation to bomb a United States federal building and kill people in it, look no further than the Second Amendment March, the one held yesterday in Washington, D.C. on the anniversary of that bombing.
I look around, it's so good to see all these terrorists out here. Janet Napolitano, she figured as governor of Arizona that we didn't have a border problem, but she knows who the real enemy is. And Bill Clinton's been running cover for her, too. Watch out how you guys speak out there. You know, words can have consequences. Remember Oklahoma City? Yeah, I do. And I also remember the Waco barbecue that your attorney general gave us. Thanks a lot. We're in a war. The other side knows they're at war because they started it. They're coming for our freedom, for our money, for our kids, for our property. They're coming for everything because they're a bunch of socialists.
It is strategically easier to complain about being accused of inciting violence unfairly when you are not at the time speaking to a crowd, carrying signs, threatening to shoot the president. I'll be right back.